Hello y'all, and welcome to the Dutch Rose Blanket Crochet Along border. I'm using Shapejes Our Tribe in Look at What I Made. I do have a note on the starting round that tells you how to resize your blanket by making a repeat of 12 stitches plus 7 across each side, not counting the 3 single crochet corner. And the only thing I need to make sure of is that I end up with my 67 at the end. In the pattern, your blanket might be the exact size that I was making in the pattern, so you'll just follow how many stitches you need to make from the pattern. But when I come back, I'm going to have all my stitches for my first row, the single crochet row, made. So I'll see you guys in just a second. Okay, so now I'm ready for round 2. I've got my 67 single crochet, my 3 single crochet in the corners, and my single crochets on my longer sides going down the side of the blanket. Okay, so for round 2, I've gone ahead and attached my yarn here with a slip stitch in the corner single crochet, and you're just going to make single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet in that same corner stitch. And then all we're going to do across the whole side is chain 2, skip 1, and then single in the next stitch. All right, and since this is pretty easy, just chain 2, skip 1, and single. I'm going to see you guys when we get to the next corner. All right, so I've got all my chain 2 spaces here. In the corner, you've got single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, and going back to the beginning for round 3, and at the end of round 1, obviously you'll slip stitch to join, but I'm only showing you kind of like the beginning and then one of the corners. Okay, and that way you can work around it, and it's real easy to tell what's going on at the beginning of the blanket. So whenever you're on round 1, when you come around back here with your singles, you're going to join with the slip stitch and continue on around your blanket. And then round 2, you'll come up with the chain 2 and join with a slip stitch in the first single crochet as well. Okay, so for round 3, we are going to make a beginning DC. So I got my single crochet there already, just chain 1, and then chain 3 and double crochet in the same chain space for the corner. All right, so now we're going to work 2 double crochets in the first chain space and also in the second chain space, 2 double crochets each. And then we're going to, in the next chain space, make our little V-stitch type of thing. Okay, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. All right, and that is our repeat. Alrighty, so now I'm down to my corner. I've gone ahead and done it. I had, after my last V-stitch, my DC, chain 2 DC, I had 2 more chain spaces left over before the corner, just like I said I would. So I did 2 DC in each of them, and then DC, chain 3 DC for my corner. So whenever you come around your blanket, you're going to just go ahead and slip stitch into the beginning DC of the beginning of the round, and that will end round 3. And then we're going to go ahead and jump into round 4. Okay, so round 4. I start with a beginning cluster, which is just a beginning DC and a DC. So I'm going to make my beginning cluster, chain 2, and then just go ahead and do 4 more clusters in the corner with chain 2 spaces in between each one. Now I'll chain 2, and then where I'm going to make my single crochet stitch is in between these 2 DC groups. So now I'm going to go ahead and chain 2, and this next little bit is going to have 3 clusters with chain 2 in between. Chain 2 and then make your single crochet in between the 2 DC groups again. Now chain 2, and in this next chain space we're going to do the small shell, which is cluster, chain 3, cluster. Okay, chain 2, and then anchor it with my single crochet in between the 2 DC groups. And I'm going to go ahead and step back here. So this is our repeat now. So just make sure that you chain 2 and anchor it with your single crochet in between, and then you're going to alternate with a large shell, and then anchor the single crochet, and then small shell till you get to the very end. Right before your corner, you're going to end on a large shell, and in your corner you're going to do just like this. You're going to have your 5 clusters with chain 2 spaces in between. All right, so I'm going to keep working this repeat of the 2 alternating shells, and then I'll see you guys when I get back to my next corner. Okay, so I'm at the end of the row here, and I've completed down my blanket a little bit. So in my corner, you see I've got my 5 clusters, and before and after the corner, I've got my large shell. So I'm going to start with my slip stitch here into my first chain 2 space from round 4. All right, and got my slip stitch. I'm going to make my single crochet, and then I'm just going to be making chain 3 spaces around pretty much chain 3, single crochet in the next chain space, chain 3, single crochet in the next chain space. Okay, again, chain 3, and then in the next chain space. Now here I've got my chain spaces over the first 4 full clusters from round 4, and obviously I started here, so my last cluster isn't done yet, but that's okay, we'll get there when we get to the end of the round. And when I'm here in this chain space, I just go ahead and make 2 singles with no chain in between. So single crochet in these 2 chain spaces here, all right, with no chain space in between, and then chain 3, single crochet in the next chain space, chain 3, single crochet in the next chain space. Oh, I promise I know how to crochet, you guys. There we go. All right, and then one more time, chain 3, and then single crochet in the next 2 chain spaces with no chain in between. All right, so I've got my 2 single crochets here with no chain space in between, and then over the small shell, obviously you're just going to do chain 3, single crochet in that chain of the small shell, chain 3, and since we're between shells, we do our 2 singles without any chain space in between. And that's how you're going to go across this whole row all the way to your next corner, and you'll treat your corner the same way. These 2, since it's got the anchor single in the middle, single, single, all right, and then chain space single over all 5 clusters, single, single, okay, and then continue on. So this round is pretty easy, just chain spaces. So I'll see you guys whenever I get done with this round. And when you come back around to the beginning of this round, you will make your chain space, your final chain space, and then slip stitch in this first single crochet right here. All right, and your next move is to go right into this chain space. So that's where I'm going to join my yarn for round 6, the final border round. So first I'm going to make a beginning large shell. If you recall, that means I'm going to beginning DC, and then DC, that's my little beginning cluster there, chain 2, cluster, chain 2, cluster. All right, now this is my corner chain space. It's over my middle cluster of round 4. And so in this corner chain space, like the very peak corner, I'm going to make a small cluster. I mean, a small shell. So I've got a cluster, chain 3, and that chain 3 is the very corner of my blanket. So I'll make my second cluster of my small shell and then go straight into another large shell. Okay, so then I'm going to just anchor it with a single, large shell, small shell, large shell across these 3 clusters. And that's over the 3 clusters from round 4. Now I'll just anchor this with a single crochet in the next chain space. Okay, and then I just did a single crochet in the next chain space as well, 2 in a row. Some folks have found it better if they work 1 chain in between those 2 singles. So over our small shell of round 4, you're just going to have a single and a single. Or if you prefer, you can have a single, a chain, and a single. So it's just really how you feel your blanket border is coming out. If you need to cinch it up a little more, you can get rid of that chain. If you need it to be a little more stretched out because it's puckering, it's too tight, then you can add the chain in there. I did it without the chain in the pattern. So, I mean, I'm just going to do it with the chain because that's how I have it right there. And I also think that that's how it's going to work better for my border on this tiny blanket. Okay, so that's our repeat. So now I'm at the corner here. Now I've finished my large shell, small shell, large shell. And to work your single crochet to anchor your petal. And then go straight into your large shell, small shell, large shell. And then single. Once you work this single, you go straight into your next large shell, small shell, large shell. All right, so I'm going to work that to show you, and then I'll be right back. All right, so I've made my corner here, and out of our 5 chain loops of the corner, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chain loops over 5 clusters from row 4. So I've got round 4 here, 5, and then in these 5, I've got a single in the first one, a large shell, small shell for the corner, large shell, and single. And then I've jumped straight into my large shell for my next petal over the next 3 clusters. Okay, large shell, small shell, large shell. Then I did my single crochet and I did my chain. It's not in the pattern, but I added it in. And then single crochet, jumping into my next large shell and moving on around the blanket for that repeat. So that is what our border looks like. We've got, when you block this out, you can make these chain 3 spaces of the small shell just a little more pronounced so that that part kind of sticks up a little bit and it makes your nice little ruffly petals going across. You can use this border, any blanket that you can fit a multiple of 12 stitches plus 7 on your first single crochet round, you can go ahead and work this border. That's why I like this blanket, because it's very versatile. So we've got my corner here, you can see, and whenever you join at the beginning of your blanket, you're just going to, like you did before, you're going to make your slip stitch into the top of your beginning cluster, and then just go ahead and break your yarn and weave in all your ends. All right, so that is how the Dutch Rose blanket crochet along border is worked.